I'm doing this on the computer.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, the meeting is now streaming live on YouTube?
Yeah,
Why?
For those who prefer to just watch, we will have it on YouTube, as well as for people who, if anyone would like to see it afterwards,
I think I'd rather be sitting.
it'll be there.
I'll have you sitting in a chair, all right?
For
Because I
posterity.
don't want them to see we're in bed.
It'll be there for posterity, so people can go back and look at it if they are interested. People want to be reminded of what someone said or the silly thing that they said, then they can.
Lower it low.
All right. Hello, Susan.
Did everyone meet my sister and nephew?
Yes.
Hello.
I'm sister Martha,
Hello.
nephew Avi.
They're in Cincinnati.
Welcome.
Cincinnati.
Great that you're joining us.
Hi. Thank you.
This is one of those little silver linings that had come out of this terrible coronavirus situation, is that we can now have far-flung people join us for these things without actually having to get on an airplane or in a car. Just,
Hi, George and Emily.
Hi.
See me?
hello.
Somebody was talking about Cincinnati.
Yes, Martha and Robbie are in Cincinnati. That's where Susan Brand grew up.
Oh,
This is-
that's where I grew up.
Who else
Did
grew up?
you? Are you from there?
Yes, I grew up in Cincinnati,
Where'd you go to high school?
Wyoming.
Oh, Wyoming. We all went to
Wyoming
Walnut
High
Hills.
So you,
No.
the two of you are not allowed to talk, right? I mean, it just, the rivalry is such that you can't even have a relationship.
We weren't rivals. Our high schools weren't rivals.
No, we weren't.
Oh, we're rivals.
Didn't your sister go to Walnut Hill?
No, not Walnut Hills, no, but a very good friend of mine did. It's a loss to me.
Oh, there you are, Harriet. I didn't see you.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
So Sherry is still off. So I think what we'll do is we'll wait until Sherry joins us to start Mariv.
I just saw Sherry a moment ago.
She's there.
Trying to help Andrea get on.
She's on her phone.
She's helping us get onto the call.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not a problem. I feel like anyone who's helping someone else get onto Zoom is doing a mitzvah.
I just think it's above my pay grade, though. I'm just,
Sherry, you can suggest to Andrea
yeah.
that she tune in on YouTube. This is happening on YouTube. And so if she can't figure out Zoom, she can just go to YouTube and watch it as though it were a television program. It's not obviously not ideal because it means that she can't participate in the minion, but she will be able to follow it.
You know, I'm going to have Jim help her, okay? That way.
Does she have the link on, does she have the email link?
Yeah, I just sent it to her.
Okay. Because it's pretty easy with that.
Sherry and Jim.
You should have gotten it. I'm going to, Jim,
It's also easy to telephone in, on a real live landline.
how about if you talk to Andrea here and I'll, okay?
Okay. All right. Hold on here.
See if you can help her.
This is my friend Sharon who's just joining.
Lovely.
Hi,
That's
Sharon.
wonderful.
She doesn't have her audio yet.
It's working. There she is. Hello, Sharon.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hey, I don't see anybody.
Not yet. Hopefully that'll happen soon.
Okay,
We see you.
Right?
okay. Who am I speaking to?
This is, my name is Jim. I'm the rabbi for the congregation.
Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to
And
meet
I'm
you.
Miriam. I'm a friend of Susan's.
Hi, Miriam. I'll see everybody soon. Oh, here. Okay,
All right,
now I see you.
great. So I'm
Hi,
gonna,
Martha.
Hi, Sharon.
we'll still wait a little bit until Jim and hopefully Jim and Sherry will be able to join us.
They're here, they're on.
They're on, but they're helping Andrea get onto Zoom. And so I feel like this is sort of like someone trying to think of an appropriate analogy, but I probably can't do it. But I'm someone who's helping someone get into the minion. And so to start before they show up is not right.
I just wanted to, Rabbi Jim,
Yeah.
I just want to welcome my friends George Hine and Emily Romney.
Well, I'm
Sherry.
So thrilled to see.
I'm very happy that they're here.
Jim too.
How did you know
Hi.
about this?
From me,
Oh,
Harriet Feinberg.
I told them.
oh, okay, great.
Oh, it all comes clear now.
Hey, Andrea's on.
If anybody's interested,
How you doing?
if anyone's interested while we're waiting, I actually emailed this afternoon with Sarah Green, who's Susie Crone's
Yeah.
stepdaughter.
Oh,
And I asked her how Paul is doing. I don't know if you all know, but Paul is in a memory facility in South Boston.
Yes.
And she said that there's actually recently one resident there tested positive,
Oh, that's awful.
and hopefully they've contained it. And she said she thinks he's probably struggling with it, but said they go there once a week and visit with him through the window.
and how is she doing?
You know, she's doing okay. I mean, you know, her daughter's having, she's having problems getting her daughter into the right school, and she's, working from home, and she's living out in Western Mass now.
Oh,
So I think she's thinking about trying to move to Boston
Yeah,
next.
that would make sense.
So
Andrea, I see your name. Are you?
yeah.
No, because I don't know how to get my face up.
Well, you know what? I'm
But
so
my
happy-
name is here.
I'm very happy to have your voice.
That should count for something.
Why don't we count our blessings as your voice being here?
Andrea, there might be a place on your computer where it says, where there's a picture of a video camera, and it's possible that it's muted. So you might want to click on it and see if it
But
like
it says share,
brings it
wait
to
a
life.
minute, video camera.
in the lower left, perhaps?
Is that the one over on the right?
Lower left.
Ah, I see Zoom US. I'm gonna click on something.
If you see a picture with a video camera, there might be a line across it. That would mean that it's
It looks
muted.
like a hot water bottle, but it's supposed to be.
It does look like a hot water bottle.
Yeah,
Right.
that was what the dawn of television, the original video cameras were actually hot water bottles. Yeah.
Jim, what side?
Well, on my screen, it's on the left side at the
How
bottom.
about start video?
Yes,
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
click that.
You want to do that?
So maybe we should get going with the service.
I think we should get going. Andrea, let's be happy that you are with us in voice, and just to be reminded that sometimes these things take a few iterations before they become second nature. So this is the first time you've joined us, and it's really wonderful that you're here. So we will be grateful for your presence.
And you have the prayer book.
Somewhere. Oh, yes, I think I do. Hold on, Sue.
All right. So we are using tonight the pages that are going to be called are going to be called from this Siddur, Led Shalem,
Yeah, I know.
the current conservative movement Siddur.
Yeah, I
but
gotta look for it. Oops.
take your time. But the fact is that Mariv is Mariv, and any Siddur you have will do the job, and no Siddur will also do the job. You will just have some moments for quiet reflection and meditation. So I will ask everyone. I'm gonna unmute everyone just when we get to the Baruch Hu, which is going to be very soon. So I will ask everyone to respond to the Baruch Hu. Then I will mute everybody again until we get to the Kaddish. And when we get to the Kaddish, I will unmute everyone again, and I'll ask you to respond appropriately to the Kaddish, just as you would in Shul. And then I will mute everyone again for the silent Amida, which means that you don't have to be silent at all. If you don't want, you can make as much noise as you want during the Amida. So
I just want to thank everyone for helping to make the minyan.
absolutely, absolutely, and of course and then when we get to the end of the service, I'm not sure that the Psalm for the House of Mourning is in this book because it is it's a Shabbat and holiday book. Just happens to be what we have. So I think what we'll do, Susan, do you have a Sim Shalom or something like that?
Silverman,
Yeah, Silverman won't do it, unfortunately.
that's all I have.
So what
You
we'll
might
do-
have a chumash, and if Rabbi Jim tells you what number psalm it is, you might be able to look it up.
you have a copy of
I
the
mean, not a
Bible,
chumash, but a tanakh.
Yeah,
Tanakh, then you'll be in good shape.
I have a Tanakh.
Great.
Looks like Mary Ellen.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Got the Psalms.
So are we on page 264?
Okay. All right, Susan is back. We're good to go. The psalm in question is Psalm 42. So if you find Psalm 42, Susan, now, that will make things a little bit quicker when we get to that point.
And which day of the Omer is it?
Tonight is, give me 1 second.
Psalm 42.
Tonight
Oops.
is tonight is will be the, well, it is not quite right now, it's the 10th day of the Omer, so when we get to it you can count.
The Luwak says day 11.
Right, so yeah, today Sunday was day 10.
Uh-huh.
The tradition is you don't say the number of the day that it is until you actually count the Omer. We have to assume that everyone's capacity for addition includes adding 1 to a current number. All right, so so I'm only going to call numbers from Lev Shalem, for which I apologize for all those who have a different prayer book. So we're on page 264. והוא רך ומכפר עוון ולא ישחית, וירבה להשיבה פה ולא יאיר כל חמצו. אדוני הושיע, המלך יעננו ביום קורנו. I'll ask everyone to unmute themselves as they are able and to rise also as they are able. Baruch hu et Adonai mevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בינו ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המביא והרבי. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים נתן למדת. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו והם נגעו יומם ולילה ויבטח אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
שמע ישראל, אמנו אלוהים.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני ואהבת אותנו. האם שמות תשמעו לי? ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת ומחוזות וגאים עלינו כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו ואנחנו ישראל עמו אדוני. עושני לו ינחק ונתלות עד מספר ושם נשים. טוב רצון קיבלו עליהם. We're on page 267. משה אומר ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו להם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך תדעתו הראו בניך בוקר גם לפני משה זה אלי ענו ויאמרו בהד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מאיר חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
אמן.
הגנו אדוני אלוהינו בימיך. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים לשלום ומעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד. ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן. On page 268. ברוך אדוני. Page 269, Baruch Adonai Bayom, Baruch Adonai Balayla, Baruch Adonai B'Shokvin, Baruch Adonai B'Kumenu, Ki B'Yadecha Nashro, Nafshot HaChayim U'Mei HaMetim Asher B'Yadam. Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed, Ki Malchut Shecha Hi U'Le'ad Timloch B'Chavod, Ki En Lanu Melech Ele'ata Baruch Ata Adonai, HaMelech B'Chvodo Tamid Milmoch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed, V'Hal Kol Ma'asa. I invite you to rise as you are able and respond, please, appropriately to the Kaddish as we go through it. Yitkadav, Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Yalmad Yivarachir Tibiam Lich Malchute B'Chaychon V'Malchon B'Chay Decho B'T Yisrael B'Galav V'Zman Gariv Yibru Amen.
Ishmael Rabba Mabarak
Yiparach Yishtabach 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 Yisrael David David
Yehu.
Barich Ula'ed Amin Kobech David Shreata Tishbechat V'Nechad Amiram Yalma V'Yimru
Hi, it's Marcia here. Can't hear anything.
Who is it?
Marcia, we're all being muted for now.
Everybody's being muted.
Yes, we're in the service still.
Okay.
Marcia's coming for the book club, right?
Okay.
All right, so I will invite everyone to join in Shalom Rav, which is found on page 278. Please sing as loud as you would like to, as long as you're on mute. And if you're not muted, then please sing as quietly as you possibly can. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Chasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Chasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon B'chol HaShalom. Ki ata melech Adon B'chol HaShalom. Shalom Yisrael Amecha Chasim Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Amecha Chasim Leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et Amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Chasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Chasim Leolam. Chasim Leolam. Chasim Leolam. So at this point, we will say the Misha Berach, which if you have the Lev Shalem is on page 173. And in the interest of time, I will ask everyone just to hold the names of all those who are in need of healing in your hearts. And we will sing the Misha Berach. And again, please feel free to join me from your rooms. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBeracha Imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBeracha Imotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal and let us say Amen. All right, I'm going to unmute everyone. And we will turn page 280 in the Lev Shalem for Minyan, for Kadesh Shalem. Please rise as you are able. Kedavi Gadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yivrach Yortei v'Yamlich Malchutei b'chayechon v'mochon v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael b'galav izman karib v'imavru. Amen. Yivarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yidrom v'yidaseh v'yidar v'yidalev v'lo shemei l'kudasham. V'richu le'ela min kol berachatav v'shir atav t'shmechat v'nechem atav v'nechem b'yamam v'imru amen. Voton voton l'chol Yisrael kol dam avon b'shma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Hey, shalom aram mitzvah v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yes, shalom v'mamah hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
The Lanu is found on page 281. Please remain standing. Aleinu l'shabeach adon hakol la'teit gedulah liyotzeh bereshit shehu asan b'koyei haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו וגובהי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו ופסולתו Kakatu b'torato v'yadata hayom v'yashivota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mima'al v'yal ha'aretz mitachat ein hod al ken nechavelach Adonai Eloheinu l'omer. לך תקרא כל ברך תשבע כל לשון לפניך. ולמאה ימלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יחיה אדוני אחד. Ushmo echad. All right, I've unmuted everyone again. We will turn to page 282.
Jim, Rabbi Jim, we didn't count the Omer.
We'll do that. We'll do that after Kaddish.
Okay.
I'm not doing this. This is something different.
All right, so I'm going to ask everyone to try to be
Hi, Sherry.
to try to be as quiet as you can be. Besides saying amen.
We're still in the service now, so.
What?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Yeah, so we're still in the middle of the service. We will be done with it as soon as we have had a chance to say Kaddish, and then the for the house of mourning, and then we will count the Omer and we'll finish. Susan, please lead us in the Kaddish. Everyone else's job is to respond appropriately. Susan, just remember to wait until you've heard the last person say amen before you begin again, otherwise people won't hear you.
Yitkadah v'yitkadah shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yomad Yibrach Yirteh, Yamlich Malchuteh, V'chayechon V'yomechon, V'chayelech Beit Yisrael, V'agalah V'zman Kariv V'yimeru. Amen.
Amen.
Hey,
Yitbarach, Yitabach, Yitar, Yitamam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalev, Yitalach, Shemed Kudashah, La'elam Inko Birchata V'Shirata, Yishbechata V'Nechamata, Namiran V'Yomar V'Yamru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chaim Aleinu V'Yalkol Yisrael V'Yamru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'Mermav, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Yalkol Yisrael V'Yamru. Amen.
Amen.
Now I'm going to mute everyone but Susan. And Susan will read for us Psalm 42, which is the alternative psalm for a house of mourning.
For the leader, a maskil of the Korahites.
Actually, the next one.
43,
No, page Psalm 42.
like a hind crying for water.
Yeah, for the leader. Yeah, right.
Right. Like a hind crying for water, my soul cries for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, the living God. Oh, when will I come to appear before God? My tears have been my food day and night. I am ever taunted with, where is your God? When I think of this, I pour out my soul. How I walked with the crowd, moved with them, the festive throng, to the house of God with joyous shouts of praise. Why so downcast, my soul? Why disquieted within me? Have hope in God. I will yet praise him for his saving presence. Oh my God, my soul is downcast. Therefore I think of you in this land of Jordan and Hermon, in Mount Mizar, where deep calls to deep in the roar of your cataracts. All your breakers and billows have swept over me. By day may the Lord vouchsafe his faithful care, so that at night a song to him may be with me, a prayer to the God of my life. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I walk in gloom, oppressed by my enemy, crushing my bones? My foes revile me, taunting me always with, where is your God? Why so downcast, my soul? Why disquieted within me? Have hope in God. I will yet praise him, my ever-present help, my God.
So Susan, you have a choice. You can say Kaddish one more time, or we can move directly to Oseh Shalom. What is your preference?
I'll do it again.
Great. All right. So I'm going to unmute everyone, and please again respond appropriately to Susan's Kaddish.
Amen.
Yitbarach, Yitabach, Yitar, Yitamam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalev, Yitalal, Shemed Kudashah, La'elam Mikol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechamata, Damiran V'Yomar V'Yimru. Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chaim Aleinu V'Yalkol Yisrael V'Yimru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Yalkol Yisrael V'Yimru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'Yalkol Yisrael V'Yimru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu V'Yalkol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu V'Yalkol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Yalom Aleinu v'Yavo Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'Yavo Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'Yavo Yisrael. So if you have the Lev Shalem, we will turn now to page 65. Actually, no, it won't be 65. It'll be 63 for the blessing. Followed, then we turn to page 65 where we go to Nissan 26. That is tomorrow, Nissan 26. Okay. All right, so please join me in the blessing at the bottom of page 63. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Hayom achad asar yom shehem shavua echad va'arba'a yamim la'omer. We are in the week of judgment, the week of Gvura and Din. So we will, I hope, soon be through this. It's not lost on me that this is also, at least in our state, the acme of the coronavirus, and I'm hoping that this will be, from here on in, we will move down the curve as opposed to up it, God willing. So. All right. All right, so thank you everyone for making the minyan. Susan, did you want to say anything, or are you?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone again too for making the minyan, and also, you know, Gail rarely came with me to services on Saturday morning, you know, just if there was something special going on, because she had another commitment that morning. She had a 12-step meeting that she went to every Saturday morning, but she always used to say to me when I'd be leaving, "Take me with you to services."
So she's here, so she's with us.
She's missed.
Right.
We miss her.
Very much missed. All right, well, thank you everyone. I'm going to sign off. Enjoy the conversation. And I will, I hope that I'll see a large number of you on Wednesday evening when we come together to commemorate Ruth Anna's first Yahrzeit, and Lois will be leading Mariv that evening. So I look forward to seeing you all then. And don't hesitate to be in touch before that for any reason. All the best, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
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 Good night.
Okay, hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to 1,000,001 Book Zoom. I just, let's see who's all here. I think we've got everybody. And we want to welcome, so we're just honored to have Tom Wolfe with us, the author of The Nightingale Sonata. And just really thrilling to be together finally after this time. And I think what we're going to do is proceed the way we usually do, which is those of us who've read the book, and we'll go around and give a little take on it, how we felt about it. And then we're going to turn over everything to Thomas Wolfe. So let's begin right here in the corner with Adina. And you're with us, Adina?
I am, but I don't.
You don't want to start?
I don't want to start.
Okay.
At some point, because I read I loved the book. I really did. but I want to think, I read about it so long, I read it so long ago that I haven't got my thoughts together. So
We'll come back to you then, okay?
Okay.
How does that sound? How about Charlotte? What happened to Charlotte? She's, oh, there you are.
Can you see me?
Yes, I see you. How about you, Charlotte? Would you like to start off?
Well, I can. I don't know.
Always have something insightful to say.
Well, I too read it many moons ago. I enjoyed it very, very much. I wondered about all the research that was necessary for the book, and I wondered how they managed it and so forth. But it certainly is many of the things were well, I not only learned about, of course, the family, but about one's musical education. And that wasn't so much a surprise. Practice, practice, practice. That wasn't so much a surprise. But his grandmother was certainly, oh my goodness. Of course, one is intrigued by the between her and Onisim, resulted in 3 remarkable children and so forth. But also the fact that one of the things that impressed me early on in the work was Onisim's father and how he, after 3 children, summarily dismissed the mother of these children and married, I think her name was Anna.
Charlotte, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think we'll have to do what Rabbi Jim does, and let's all mute ourselves. I can't because I'm not the host, but so because there's some background noise. So just put everybody else but Charlotte. There's someone who's not muted okay, I think that'll be good. Okay, I'm sorry, Charlotte, go ahead.
Okay. So early on, it's revealed that his grandfather, his great-grandfather, summarily dismissed his grandmother, and who was the mother of these 3 sons, and married the woman of an adulterous affair. The woman was, just banished. And I thought that was so interesting that one could do this, but apparently it wasn't so uncommon. But I thought that there was maybe this in Onisim's background, which enabled him, although we know of many famous men who did this, and were able to establish 2 families simultaneously and so forth. So that was one of course, the intriguing elements of the story. But I thought the whole book was fascinating because it revealed how in those times one is impacted with whatever is going on politically. They were tumultuous times. And we who were born in the United States, we're different because even though we of course are impacted by political events, it's not in the same way. And the way Leah was able to, of course, go from Odessa to Moscow, to Paris, to Berlin, to finally the United States, and navigate through all of this and still maintain a career and still have a semblance of a good life was really remarkable, just remarkable. So I enjoyed it enormously. And I'd like to hear from Tom Wolfe.
Thank you. Very well said. I think we're still going to stick with Naomi. We'll stick with our protocol of going around, and then we'll hear from Tom. But Naomi, you've got your hand up, so please.
Yes, I haven't read the book. I was invited by friends, but I would like to say hello to Tom Wolfe because I spent many summers in Rockport at the Rockport at fall foliage and heard him talk many times about people there. And hello, Tom, wherever you are. I'm not seeing you on my screen, but he's here,
Second
right?
row on mine, the second row at the end. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, yes, hello. I don't know if you remember me, Naomi Krasner.
Oh, now we can't. You have to-
Of course, yes, I do. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Very good. Okay. Peggy, have you read the book?
I'm reading it. I'm almost finished. I have about 30 pages left to go. And I'm really enjoying it a lot. Randy Levine, she's not here. She really recommended it to me. I was reading War and Peace at the time, which I finished. And she said, well, this is the perfect sequel to that. So being ensconced in Russian history and these incredible personalities, I thoroughly enjoyed it on many levels. It's a wonderful novel biography. The writing is fantastic. But also I played piano, and I appreciate what I just currently read today about the struggle of practicing. And yet I really loved practicing as a child, and so many of my friends gave up music very early. And I was always fascinated why kids gave up so soon. And I loved to practice all the time. It didn't do me much good as far as being a great musician. But anyway, I was struck by how hard she worked. I mean, just an incredible amount of effort going into being the incredible musician. It was very impressive. But I love the book. It's great, and I'm enjoying it. I hate to see it come to an end, but I'll finish it.
A very interesting take. Thank you. Very interesting. George and Emily, have you read the book, or are you just visiting with us? You have to unmute. You have to unmute. George and Emily, can you unmute yourself? That's it.
I just
At the
have to say
top.
hello to Tom Wolf. I don't know whether he remembers, but I took a course from him many years ago. He helped us get some money for Longy to launch a program for kids from the high school at Cambridge. Cambridge brings it in Latin, to come and take lessons at Longy, people who were interested and talented. And a number of those kids did so well, and it was just inspiration to me to take the course. So it's wonderful to see you again. I'm on my way in the book, but not there yet.
I just want to comment too. I'm really impressed. I'm impressed the way that you've managed the music story along with the politics and really embedded in the culture of the times. And unfortunately, it also echoes of much more modern times, and including current times. I like the writing, and also I want to say hello to your wife because I've met her in professional ways.
No, this is so special. Very lovely. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. Harriet, it's all your responsibility. So.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? I'm unmuted. Yes.
That's perfect.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I wanted to zero in on something that Tom, that you talked about now and then throughout the book, which struck me in relation to my own earlier studies, which is the conflict between the Russian school and the German school of teaching and performing. When your grandmother went to Curtis, she had this sort of frosty relationship with Flesch because he was of a different school of teaching and performing, and he didn't like the tone. It's all about the tone of the music. And it brought to my mind this whole issue of who people had studied with and who that person had studied with. You know, 6 degrees of separation. You studied with someone who studied with someone who studied with Liszt, or you studied with someone who studied with somebody else. And the various schools of how you make a beautiful tone are not the same. And what it reminded me of is in my own youth, I had a very fine teacher in Philadelphia who actually attended Curtis when it first opened in the 1920s and actually taught young people there for a while. And he was a disciple of a man named Tobias Mate, who was a British piano pedagogue who taught a number of famous British pianists, Myra Hess and others. And I was amazed to discover when I started researching him that there was an American Mate Association of people who were trying to carry on his tradition. And it seems that's the way it is. Your grandmother studied with this one and that one, and it added prestige who you had studied with. And that teacher had a whole school of famous pupils and so on. But they didn't all agree on how to create a beautiful violin sound. And then there was your Uncle Boris, who got into problems with his piano playing, that one teacher didn't like the way he had been trained and had a completely different school training. He would have had to start all over and so forth. And he became discouraged. That it just reminded me of this whole issue of lineage, which you find in Tai Chi and yoga and so forth, that you have a teacher who had a certain teacher who had a certain other teacher, and it goes back to a whole different school of practice. And your grandmother exemplified this sort of bold, wild Russian school. It was sort of, in a way, flamboyant, but based on a very, very strict system of her 4 hours of practicing every day, the 7 to 11, which she kept on into her later years. But this rigid system of practicing resulted in a sort of unconventional variation of what the composer had in mind. It was kind of a strange juxtaposition. So I was very interested in all the different schools of piano, of the violin playing and piano playing and so forth that came through in the book, and how I could relate these to experience of like who had studied with who and who played like who, and the fingers and the wrists and, you know, all these things that it just, I liked the way you made it very vivid, and yet a person who wasn't familiar with all these techniques could still understand the rivalries and the rejection, and it really comes down to what is beautiful for people. Your grandmother was very concerned with tone and the instrument that made a beautiful tone. And it's all a mystery how you take your hands and you create beautiful sound. And many volumes have been written and many teachers have labored to convey that to their students. So I just thought among the many strains in the book, that was one that especially interested me. So thank you. It's a wonderful book.
You know,
Okay.
Tom, thank you, Harriet. Tom, it might be frustrating for you not to, to be muted for all this time. So if you'd like to unmute and say a word here and there while we go along, that would be fine. I don't want you to. If you want to chime in every so often, that would be okay. But did you hear me? Would you like to unmute? I can't. I'm not the hostess here. So if you would like to unmute yourself, yeah, that's good.
Who are you
Okay.
talking to?
Okay.
Great. Okay.
I was listening. I didn't know whether you wanted me to respond or wait until everybody had a chance to say something.
I think that if you want to chime in a word here and there as we go along, that would be okay at this point. But if you want to just wait to the end, and that would be fine too. I just didn't want you to feel like you were like gonna sound prison.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you all for inviting me. And thank you all those that I've heard from for reading the book so carefully. It's not an easy book to get through. And so I appreciate that. I was interested in the comment about the research. It actually took me 10 years of lots of travel to Russia, to France, to England. And I could never have done it without a cousin in Moscow who spent days and weeks and months and years in various archives. You know, the Soviets were very interesting in the sense that, like the Nazis, even their enemies, they saved everything. And when the world opened up after Glasnost and these archives opened up, for the first time, we were able to learn a great deal, particularly about my grandfather, Onisim Goldovsky. The shock, of course, in the year 2000, when the biography of Rachel Kin was published in America, and it talked about her husband, Onisim Goldovsky. And there was this very strange, how many Onisim Goldovskys could there be who were famous attorneys and political people? Because I thought he was married to my grandmother. Well, we finally reconstructed the story by being able to read Rachel's diary in one of the archives in Moscow. So I'm fortunate. I had 2 research assistants. I had my cousin, and I had a huge boxes and boxes of family material that I was able to go through. And it was a very, very long and arduous process. I will say that the original version of the book, like all researchers, I suppose, I didn't want to leave out anything. And the original version of the book was more than twice as long. And my agent said, very interesting, Tom, very compelling, but no one's going to read it. I can tell you, and those of you who have experience writing, it is very painful to cut. And it's very painful to cut a book more than in half. And I was, again, fortunate to have a couple of editors who helped me do the surgery so that I was able to get it down to size. The good news is that I've just completed a second book, which is with my agent. And much of the material that was cut, which, by the way, is much less heavy historical and much more wonderful family stories, is in the second book. So if you haven't had enough, Nightingale Encores will be coming out sometime. Let me, I just...
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but thank you for that. And some of the other folks are gonna give you their reactions, and then we'll ask you to go on. Is this okay?
Okay, sure, sorry.
Yeah, sure, yeah, because I want to just get, let everyone have a chance, and then we'll come back to you. So Jim, what do you have to say?
Well, I think that it was a wonderful book, and it combined the political story with the musical story, with the family story, and it made for a very rich book. And certainly what Harriet was talking about, the 2 different styles, was certainly interesting to find out about. The part that really made the book for me was the political part. And Onesim is such an amazing character. He was certainly not faithful to women particularly, but on the other hand, as a liberal activist, attorney in that period, I had heard a little bit about the conflicts that occurred during those times between the Kaiser and the reactionary repressive government and people who were really working for political reform. And I don't mean underground revolutionaries, I mean political people. I heard a little bit about it when I read about the Bayless blood libel case in 1911, and how that became a political football that was tossed by the reactionaries to try to distract attention against or to take advantage of anti-Semitism, to try to put down liberals. And here I was learning about a Jewish man who actually, even though he had converted to Christianity, continued to be extremely loyal to Jewish causes, and who was right in the middle of all this political activity. So I thought that that was really fascinating for me to learn about and read about. he was really extraordinary in the things that he did in the political and legal sphere. And that made for a rich story for me. So I'll just leave it there.
Oh, that was great. Thanks a lot. Helen.
Well,
So,
as
yeah,
everybody else
I'm on-
said,
Can you hear me?
I was most interested in the political part, but the music part brought it related to members of my family who I have a cousin, Emmanuel Barak, who died recently, who was concertmaster in the Dallas Symphony, but who went from Riga to Moscow to study and had followed some of that trajectory much later than your family did, but it really brought it all home with ways that people were able to get education and to move out of the circumstances they were in, especially if they had this special talent, as your grandmother did and as my cousin did. And so I really related to that part of the story too. But I found fascinating reading about the political things that affected my family coming from there years before and then years later. And I appreciate the research you did because you can see, I can certainly relate to the 10 years since I'm working on something myself and it feels forever. So I would look forward to reading your next volume.
I know you're going to tell her how to sign up for the next book. Yeah, thanks a lot, Helen. Thelma, we're glad to see you here.
I'm glad to see everybody. Nice to see you all. I missed Harriet's comments, and I'm afraid that the question that I want to ask might overlap with what she said. I came in at the end. So stop me if that's the case. But I wanted to ask the author about the decision to write a book within a book, in a sense, that is to present it as a hunt or a quest for information or a quest for a story. The alternative, I suppose, or one alternative being just to tell the story. And I wondered what had gone into that decision.
May I answer? May I
Yes.
answer that? It's a very interesting question. And when I started writing the book, I wrote it as a conventional history, and I had a person who was advising me, and she said, you know, this is it's very interesting material, but I think you need a writing coach. And very insulted. And I said, I've written several books and some of them have been in print for a long time and sold a lot of copies. I know how to write. She said, yeah, you know how to write textbooks about nonprofit organizations, but you don't know how to write this kind of a book. And I have someone who I think you should become your coach. So she put me in touch with someone who I don't know if you know the name Wallace Stegner, but he's a famous novelist.
Yes.
This was his daughter-in-law, who is a novelist herself, also a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And she read the material, and she said something that really was very dramatic and completely changed my approach to how I wrote the book. She said, this is your story as well as their story. This is your story about exploring and learning about your family. You have to change it from third person to first person, first of all, and you have to tell your story in relation to their story. So I'm very happy that you mentioned that. The other device, of course, is the device of the sonata, which I follow the progress of the sonata and the progress of the family. And that comes straight out of a book which if you have never read, I strongly recommend. The Hare with the Amber Eyes.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
that, of course, had those pieces of art, which he was following those as well as following the family story. And someone said to me, well, I said, it would be so wonderful to have something like that, but I can't figure out a piece of art that would do that. And she said, well, this book about music, what about music? It took me about 30 seconds. And I said, oh, of course, the Franck Sonata. And so that's how that part of the device came out. Thanks for asking that question.
Thank you for the answer. I had the feeling that there was something significant that had gone into the discussion, or the decision rather. So I'm glad to have that explanation.
There's a very good point. When I get to have my turn, that's what I wanted to talk about also, but I'll hold on. In the meantime, we have Naomi's iPad. I don't know who Naomi is, and we can't see you, but we'd like to hear from you if you're there. Oh, there you are. Oh, now I know who you are. Oh, yes. Did you have anything more to say?
No, I'd just like to say hello to George Hine.
Yes, that's right. Now I remember. Right. Okay, Jonathan, are you there? Jonathan? You have to unmute. Jonathan? Whoa. Do you need to unmute? Are you there? He's not there. Okay, how about you, Andrea?
Hi. I consider the book a real page turner. I couldn't put it down. And I just went straight through it as fast as I could because it was so interesting. The family part was intriguing. And then with how the family went in and out of the Russian story, but their genius with survival was fascinating, and how they did it. And then someone already mentioned, going from capital of one country to the capital of another, and always trying to connect up with people who are musicians, and then pulling the family in afterwards. And then when the book described how she played the violin and how she stood on the stage, I would go back to the picture and think, gosh, I wonder how she really stood on the stage and what that picture was like. So I loved having the photograph. It was really with the book all the way through. Now, the second part of what I want to say is that I've driven through Rockport, Maine hundreds of times, I think. And I know that part of Maine and then north up to Mount Desert is really connected with a lot of music. And I love learning more about Rockport. And I think the next time I go through, sometime maybe this summer, I'll be able to stop and look around instead of just kind of charging on northward. So I thought the book was highly successful just because of really the family story and the movement of this family and the success of this family. And then the description of music itself and the practicing and the practicing and the practicing. I thought it was really great. I'm looking forward to the next book.
Very nice. Yes, definitely. Bob RJ, who are you? Are you there?
That's my cousin.
Oh, okay. Is he there? I don't hear a voice.
Well, I invited him and he's there, but that's him, but he needs to unmute himself if he wants to say anything.
I don't see him as being mute. I don't know what the problem is.
Hello, Bob, are you there? You don't hear anything, huh?
Right. Too bad.
Well,
we'll thank you, but we'll go on to Petra. Petra, are you there? You have to unmute. Petra.
I'm sure she's there.
I know she must be there. It looks like she's muted. Are you unmuting, Petra? Maybe she walked away for a minute or something.
There we go.
Here she is. All right, go ahead, Petra.
Okay, so much has been said that I was going to say, but I'll say a little bit more that hasn't been emphasized as much. I was fascinated by the description of how the grandparents really pushed Leah because she was sort of the hope for the family's future, and it must have put a terrible burden on her to kind of lift the family out of their troubles and be able to escape everything that's been, I mean, all the persecution that was following the family. But it also reminded me of something like the child of Mozart and how his family very much pushed him to be kind of a prodigy and perform all over the place. So that's just a by the way. And then I also was very moved by Thomas Wolfe's detached but loving writing of his grandmother and of the whole family, and his very honest speaking from the heart writing of how he perceived himself and he and his brother and the relationship he had with his uncle. And it was really very moving. And his kind of discovery of the family story. I thought that it was just, it brought the whole story to life beautifully. I think that's about all I can say.
Yes, I agree with you. Very well said. I agree. Can we go on to Marcia?
Hi. I spent the first part of my life as a classical musician, and I grew up in Paris. So I was really very interested in the whole Russian and French experience. I really like to hear about all these famous musicians, famous pianists and violinists, mostly. Kusevitsky, of course, who was the conductor of our BSO for later. But anyway, I really enjoyed to be more familiar with all these people as people, not just as famous artists. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Very nice. Steve Weisberg, are you there? Steve, are you with us? If you are, you have to unmute. Can you do that? No luck there. Okay, we have some other people here, and I think, but I don't know who they are. If you haven't spoken yet, do you want to just, oh, he's telling me something. I guess he's absent. Is there someone who hasn't talked besides me who can pipe in now?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, who is that?
It's Ellen.
Ellen, please, we want to hear from you, definitely.
Yeah. I just couldn't do any more screen time, so I called in. But first of all, I want to thank Tom for this book. I was also one of the people who couldn't put it down. And I read it, I think, in January when we first discussed reading the book. And so my comments are a little bit rusty at this point, but I guess I want to start out by saying I was absolutely in awe of the great-grandmother, who was such a forceful character and really kept the family together, particularly during the hazardous travels out of Russia. And I wondered if you could say more about her. I was also just stunned by the music and the way in which the Russian soul is attached to making music in a particular passionate way. And I thought about that because here in Brighton, I'm ordinarily connected to a number of older Russian women in their 80s, who go to my gym classes when we were still having gym classes, and were trained as ballerinas. And just the quality of the training, the dedication to the training, and to talk about that from your third generation American perspective of how this culture of passionate music making has changed would be very interesting for me. And the third is that I was unfamiliar with this music or even with the genre. And so I began looking for it at some of our local music venues, and I got a chance to hear the sonata played by some young musicians, very passionate musicians at New England Conservatory in what was probably the last performance before they closed down. So those are just some comments on the music, on the multi-generational family, and on music and the Russian soul, and the dedication that music is the way you self-actualize, as we would say in American psychology.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Adina, do you still want to say something? You have to unmute.
Okay. What I found, I loved everything about it. I liked the sense of history, what I learned about the musical world. But what I particularly found unique was your voice, Tom. You could hear your voice, and I found it quite amazing. It must have taken a lot of energy to recreate and to get into to make your family members so alive and so real and very plausible. And I thought that was amazing. I just, I really loved the book. I also could not put it down. Quite by accident, I did hear, I heard the sonata performed at somebody's home as part of a group muse evening at the home of Susanna Heschel just before this book was introduced to me. So it made it very real, and but it was unusual to pick up a book like this and to hear the author's voice, and it's a history and very appealing presentation of your family, your amazing family.
Great, thank you. Okay, it looks like I'm the last one, and then we'll hear more from Tom. I thought it was just really a terrific book. And when we first brought it up that we were going to read it for the book club, I said to Harriet, "How is this a Jewish book?" And she said, "You'll see." And I think it is a Jewish book. It's a Jewish story. It includes, while they're not particularly religious, they're so affected by Jewish events. That's the first thing. And then it starts out and tell me if I'm wrong, but Rachel and oh no, I got a brain freeze. And Onisim couldn't get divorced Jewishly, so they converted to Christianity. It was so ironic, and it really, that was one aspect of Judaism. And then they were then later affected by so many Jewish events, or anti-Semitism, and the Russian history and all caught together. And also I thought that the thrust for achievement is a Jewish value, and how they survived through all those events. I think that's what really made it a Jewish book. And there were so many other dimensions to it. It was just marvelous. I think of it as a literary sonata. And it was so artful. And then when you explained that how you had that consultation with that turning it into your own story is really what made it. And there were so many poignant parts, particularly towards the end, when you get into your own story and where you fall in with this whole illustrious family in a very modest way, and honest, and I found it very moving. And all the aspect, the musical world, that in itself would have been enough. It was really one of these, had you taken any one of those things and just developed that, it would have been enough. But you put it all together in such an artful way. It was just really a wonderful book.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Often we read books and they're good books, but they kind of have a blah ending and they sort of peter out. And this story, as you tell it, happened to have a very dramatic ending, and therefore and a very emotionally resonant ending. And I just want to point that out as one of the special qualities that made this book as good a book as it was.
Okay, now we turn it over to you.
Again, thank you all, and especially for so many perceptive comments. And let me address some of them. You mentioned about the styles of playing. And the styles of playing that were kind of national styles, the Russian style of playing versus the German, was much more obvious back before the age of recordings. Recordings have really kind of almost standardized an international style of playing, so the differences are not nearly as marked as they were back then. But even when I was growing up, I remember I was playing a flute in my Uncle Boris's opera company, and I was at Carnegie Hall rehearsing before we went on tour. And I got in a cab after the rehearsal to go where I was staying. And at that time, it was very unusual to have a really good sound system in the cab. And I commented on the fact that there's this beautiful sound system and gorgeous music coming out of it. And the cab driver said to me, $1 if you can tell me the composer, $2 off the fare if you can tell me the orchestra, and $3 off the fare if you can tell me the conductor. I said to him, now, you know where you picked me up, right? You picked me up on the steps of Carnegie Hall. You sure you want to offer? He said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And I said, well, that's Ormandy conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra, and they're playing Tchaikovsky 5. And he said, yeah, you're right. That's $3 off the fare. Of course, I was so proud of myself that I paid the full fare plus a big tip. But the point was that back then, it was much easier to distinguish different styles of playing, and particularly this difference between the German and the Russian school. I mean, I grew up in a Russian household where it was, the whole emphasis was on the beauty of sound. And the Germans were fidelity to the score, no matter how ugly it sounded. Of course, that's my grandmother speaking now. This difference was persistent, so much so that, as Harriet pointed out, when my grandmother was hired, the head of the violin department departed from the Curtis Institute. He was so upset that all of these Russians were coming in when he really didn't approve of the way they played. I wanted also to comment on a couple of other things that you mentioned. First of all, my great-grandmother, as you point out, Giddle, as we call her in the book, but Babushka, as we called her at home, really was a force of nature. And her husband was this very nice man, Saul, very honest, good Jew, went to the temple every day to make up the minyan. But kind of a joke in the family was that he was so honest that she couldn't make money selling her pianos because he would tell everybody what was wrong with the piano. So she would say, she would send him to the synagogue. And in our family, whenever anybody didn't like what someone else was doing or saying, we would always say, go to the synagogue, go to the synagogue. That was the way to kind of get rid of them. And emerged from this wonderful tradition. She was a great, she basically brought up my mother and the siblings, because after they got to Berlin and Paris, and she would go out every day and she would cook and she would do all of the things that she needed to do, always bargaining. She was thrown out of John Wanamaker's store in Philadelphia, as you may remember from the book, when she tried to bargain down the cost of ladies' underwear. From her dying day, it was always a battle. And I often maintain that I come from a real matriarchy. I mean, she was strong, Leah was strong, my mother was strong. Always we deferred. This was long before women's liberation. The final thing that just in reference to some of the observations that you made, when we think about the Jews, the Russian Jew musicians, and how music was the passport to a better life. I think I tell the joke in the story, how do you know the boy that's going to become a mathematician? And the answer is he's the one not carrying a violin case. Everybody, they wanted their children to be very talented so they could get out of the Pale of Settlement, they could go to Moscow, they could have a great life. And I was thinking about it, it's not unlike today, the role that sports plays among certain segments of our population that want to make their fortune. And if you're very, very, very good at sports, at basketball or football or baseball, you can be the one that transforms the family from a very poor ghetto kind of situation to riches. So it's not unlike that. And in the Lubavitch family, they were fortunate because they had not only my grandmother, but they had two very extraordinarily talented other children, my Uncle Pierre and my Aunt Anna. Anna, of course, stayed in Russia, and she married a prominent physician, and they were coddled by the Soviets. But Pierre also came out of Russia and came to America and established the Lubavitch and Nemenov duo piano team. I'd like to tell one funny story which got cut from the book. In case you don't ever get to see the second book. This is one that I love. My father, of course, he was the person that my grandmother and my great grandmother had their eye on. They wanted to find an affluent Jewish family that they could marry my mother off to. She had proven herself untalented as a musician, untalented as a ballet dancer, but she was very, very beautiful. So they figured, okay, well, we'll marry her off. And they found, of course, my father, who fit the bill, and had absolutely no musical talent at all, and decided that he wanted to learn an instrument. And my grandmother made sure that it was not one of the family instruments, piano or a string instrument. And he took up the flute. And he played it badly, but he played it enthusiastically. And on one occasion, Jascha Heifetz, who at that time was one of the reigning great violinists of the day, was visiting the house. And he had adapted some famous melodies from opera and symphonies so that amateurs could play them at home. And my father, when he found out that Heifetz was coming, he got one of these, he practiced it. And when Heifetz came into the living room, my father had his flute all put together. He had the music up on the music stand. And Heifetz said, "Oh, I see you have one of my little pieces here. Does somebody play it?" My father immediately said, "Oh, yes, I play it." And he said, "Well, would you like to play it with me?" Because Heifetz also played the piano. So they started the piece. The piece started very slowly and Dad struggled through it. And then came the fast section. And Heifetz started playing it very fast. And my father said, no, that's too fast. He's telling one of the greatest violinists of the world that was too fast. And Heifetz said, "Yeah, but that's the way it goes." And my father said in a famous comment that's gone through the family for generations, "Not if you want to play it with me."
Why did you leave that out of the book?
Well, actually, there are many stories like that. And the editors made the decision, a lot of those stories, which are going to go into the second book, they just felt it was too much. You know, the people, it's already a fairly long book. And so
You had to cut something.
they made that decision and I went along with it. So anyway, but by the people who like the photos and want to see more, I think probably you've been told that there's a wonderful website, nightingalesonata.com. And on the website, there are many photographs. There's also, if you want to hear the sonata, there's audio. There are several videos. One of the videos is a program that I do with violinists playing the sonata, and I tell the story of the book. So do, if you have a chance, go to the website and take a look at some of that material. And I wondered whether, I don't know what your time is, it's already 8:37, but whether anybody had any particular questions that you wanted to ask me.
What's the name of the website again?
It's nightingalesonata.com.
Okay.
It's Nightingales with an S, Sonata, so it's a double S in the middle. Nightingalesonata.com.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep, right.
Jonathan had a question, and I don't know if Jonathan's in a position to ask it himself, but he wanted to make sure that this question was asked. And it says in the book that it was a tremendous accomplishment, or really arrived to be performing at Carnegie Hall. And Jonathan wanted to ask, well, can't you just rent Carnegie Hall? What makes it such a big deal?
Well, actually, back in the old days, you could rent Carnegie Hall, and a lot of people did for the debuts. You can't do that. Carnegie Hall is both a presenter and also they have relationships with organizations and individuals. You can no longer just present yourself. But I think the significant thing about the concerts, the Carnegie Hall concerts that I talk about, are they weren't self-promoted concerts, which are where people would just rent the hall and maybe have 8 people in the audience. These were produced concerts put on by the great entrepreneurs like Saul Hurok and others. And in that sense, they were a different kind of concert. But you are right. People used to rent Carnegie Hall for their debuts, and then they would what we call paper the house. They would go out and give tickets to anybody who was willing to come to try and get an audience. Those are not the kinds of concerts that I'm talking about, though.
Well, I understood from reading the book how this was an important milestone in Leia's development as a well-known and well-regarded musician. It was like a key thing. It was sort of like a debutante coming out. And so I understood that, but I felt like I needed to be loyal and Jonathan and ask Jonathan's question.
You know, her first concert in Carnegie Hall, she was a teenager and she was invited to come with other Russian musicians. There was an orchestra concert that was put on by a Russian orchestra, and she was one of the soloists. And according to her autobiography, she played 12 encores, which is, you know, sort of unheard of. It also was supposed to be the beginning of a tour, but unfortunately for her, the tour, she was pregnant with my Uncle Boris and started to have morning sickness. So she had to return to Russia and never got to tour. Then, of course, she came back and played in Carnegie Hall quite frequently.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just want to comment on the map of the Pale, which was very, for me, very informative because I never understood exactly what the Pale was. So that was very good. And also the genealogical map of the family to which I referred because I didn't read the book continuously. I read it over a period of weeks and put it down and then picked it up again. So that made it very, very good for me. So thank you for those two very simplistic, but really good things for me.
Great. Yes, George Hine, or yes.
Emily.
No. I wondered if you had known or your family had known Olga Averino.
I'm sorry, the name again?
The singer Olga Averino.
No, that name doesn't ring a bell. Who is that?
Well, she was married to a man named Fedorovsky who's played violin in the symphony and came from Russia through China to the United States at the time of the revolution.
When she was teaching at
Actually, that's interesting. You mentioned about the China connection. I don't know if any of you know the book Stateless in Shanghai, but it's a very interesting Jewish book about a family that emigrates the other way. And apparently there was a big Russian community that emigrated not to Western Europe, but through China.
Yes, she was there for some time, I think, and then just realized they had to come to the United States. They wanted to have a musical life.
I did want to say one thing about, for those of you that are contemplating writing a family history and hoping to get it published, the travail of going through this process. I mentioned about the research, and I mentioned then, you know, I talked to this woman who had been advising me, and I said, okay, find me an agent. She said, oh, no, you're going to have to hire somebody to write an agent pitch. So you're going to, then you had to, so you thought, you know, you have to find a publisher, but the first thing you have to do is find an agent, which I did. And then, you know, we went through the whole thing with publishers, and different publishers would say different things. One would say, oh, well, they all said it was too long. And one would say, well, I wish the focus was X, or I wish the focus was Y. And then I would kind of re-edit it for them. And then they would say, well, yeah, but I don't think there's a market for this. Or so that whole process took a great deal of time. And then not only the editing process, the copy editing process, the design process, it's a long road. You have to be very patient. get through all of those steps.
Was it worthwhile?
Ask him again, Andrea. She asked you if it was worthwhile. She asked you if it was worthwhile. Can you hear? Can you hear me? Oh, we're all frozen here.
That's fine.
Oh, she asked if it was worthwhile. Are we? What happened? Are we all frozen?
No.
No, the
Oh.
top needs to be frozen.
Yeah, she asked if it was well. Are you still with us? Oh, he's mute.
Yes, would you do it again?
Oh, I'm sorry. You asked me whether it was worthwhile. Oh,
Yes.
of course. And one of the great pleasures that has happened is that it's put me in touch with incredible network of people who I didn't know about, who have fed me all kinds of other information. And of course, it was an opportunity to tell a story that I, had heard bits and pieces of, but it was a legacy that, that I want to leave, for the family. And now much of the research and many of the papers and a lot of the things that we've collected and photographs will happily end up in an archive at the Curtis Institute of Music. So that's a nice aspect of it. Next book, by the way, is kind of interesting, and I shouldn't be already talking about it because it's just it'll be a while before it comes out. But what I've done is I've told 40 short family stories, and for each one, I've selected a piece of music and a musical encore that goes with it. And I'm hoping that that people will be able to go through the book, and I'll have a matching website so that they'll be able to read the stories and hear the music at the same time. So kind of an exciting thing that I'm looking forward to working on while I'm sitting here at home, not allowed to go out.
Well, this has just been a wonderful evening, and I just can't thank you.
Jerry?
Yes?
This is Sam. I have a question.
Oh, Sam. Oh, welcome, Sam. Please. I take that back. Go ahead, Sam. We're thrilled to have you here.
I was wondering if the author could discuss a little bit the politics, if there were any, of selling the story within the family circle, whether there were conflicts that he had to stir the ship through.
A very interesting question. I had to make a decision, and my decision was that I wanted everybody in the close-in family and also the family in Russia to read the book and to feel comfortable with it. And I did make a few changes based on that, but I think in the end, people were happy. The funny thing is that in this new book, I tell these family stories, and there's much more disagreement and unhappiness with the way I tell some of these stories, because my brothers and sisters all have different versions of the story. They maintain that only theirs are the correct ones. There's a story, for example, about when my aunt and uncle, great aunt and uncle Lubashitz and Nemenov, are playing a concert in Philadelphia with my uncle Boris and their dog named Vodka, my uncle's favorite drink, manages to get out of the dressing room, the door of the stage open, and comes out on the stage in the middle of this very important concert at the Academy of Music. Well, I sent the manuscript of the book to my brothers and sisters, and I have the review of the concert, in which it's clear that the concert is one in which 3 members of my family, my great uncle and my great aunt and my uncle Boris, were all on stage. I have the newspaper article describing it. I have 2 sisters who maintain, despite the fact that there is this newspaper article, that no, that was a different concert. Boris wasn't there. And so we had this argument. I took the article and I scanned it and I emailed it to them. You would think that that would settle the argument, but my family much prefer their version of the story. So those are the kinds that I didn't have the kind you talked about. There's one delicate issue that was cut out of Nightingale Sonata, but is in the new book, and it is a political issue. And that is my great uncle, Shereshevsky in Russia, actually testified at one of the show trials. Now, he was forced to do that. His family would have been killed if he didn't. But he's considered a hero in the family on the Russian side, and it's not talked about. So that was a very sensitive point, but I talked to my Russian cousin, and I said, you know, this is going to be in the book. Are you comfortable with that? And she said, well, you know, that's what happened. He didn't have a choice. He was defending his family. That was a kind of a delicate one.
So interesting.
Well, thank you for that question, Sam. I'm afraid that we will have to bring this lovely evening to a close. We need to do our book club thing. The next thing we usually do is move on and pick up another book for next time and the date. But I can't thank you enough for coming. And Harry, it was such a great idea. I was so happy that you invited Tom.
Well, I want to thank my cousin Bob, who I think is there somewhere, although he hasn't spoken up, because my cousin Bob, who lives in Philadelphia, heard Tom give a talk at Curtis Institute about the book at which the sonata was played. And he just told me I have to read this book. And one thing led to another. So it's really, Bob, if you can hear me, I'm thanking you, because it's directly because of you that we've had this nice evening.
This was very special.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Okay, kids.
So now the members of the book club are remaining to choose another book. Is that it?
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Welcome to remain, whether they've been coming in the past or not.
Yeah, too late to say that. They all left before we even had a chance. So does anybody have any ideas for next time? And we don't know how, you can unmute. We don't know how, where it's going to be, but we're going to keep going now. And let's plan a book for next time. And either
Can I recommend a book?
Yep.
I'm interested in recommending this book, Be Strong and of Good Courage, by
Andrea, are you writing it down?
Yeah, hold it. I'm getting your calendar.
This book is a book about
Say it again.
leaders in Israel, specifically Ben Gurion, Begin, Sharon, and Rabin. It's written by Dennis Ross and David Makovsky.
Wow.
It came out last year, and it talks about critical decisions that they faced and the ways in which they demonstrated leadership when they made these decisions. If you remember, a few months ago, we read the book Catch 67, where the author, remind me of his name, the author, Micha Goodman, went through the history of the state of Israel and some of the dilemmas that Israel faces to present his viewpoint as to where Israel could go from here. And this book, I think, does a similar job. What it does is it looks at these four leaders and decisions that they had to make at crucial moments in the state and the qualities that they showed. And it tries to draw some conclusions from their examples. as to a way forward in the Middle East. So it's called Be Strong and of Good Courage.
I would
Dennis
second
Ross.
that. I've read the book and it's really excellent. It presents these men in an extraordinarily sympathetic way. It goes through their childhood, their experiences in Israel, and how they really made crucial decisions and how difficult it was, which really impacted the state of Israel. So I would second that nomination. It's an excellent book.
Okay, author?
Ross,
Dennis Ross,
Oh, Dennis
and
Ross, sorry.
David Makovsky.
Yeah.
Makovsky.
M-A-K-O-V.
I'd like to, oh, we got it?
Yeah, I got it.
I'd like to suggest a book I just noticed called What We Talk About When We Talk About Hebrew, and in parentheses, and what it means to Americans. It's edited by Naomi Sokoloff and Nancy Berg. And I haven't read it, but it just seemed intriguing. What we talk about when we talk about Hebrew and what it means to Americans. It's a recent book and seems to be very popular.
I hope you sharpened that pencil before you started writing the name of that book down.
As you mean Hebrew the language?
Yes, it's a compilation of essays by various scholars and literary figures.
Dara Horn, for example.
Dara Horn, Alan Mintz is in here.
Oh, sounds interesting.
Yeah. I haven't read it though. Anybody else? Sam, you have a book for us?
What?
This is Ellen over here. I like the sound of the first book and the second book, but I also think at some point we should read Unorthodox.
Didn't we read that?
I thought we read it.
Sherry,
Oh,
I read it.
I
I don't
didn't.
remember whether we read it as part of the group. Did we read it as part of
No,
the group?
we didn't read it in the group.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's a very
Well-
interesting book. It's also a very personal story of
Yeah, I don't
being, becoming liberated
Yeah.
from the bonds of the Satmar community.
Yeah.
We just started the movie. I think we're gonna like the movie better than the book, but it's
Yeah.
a good suggestion, yeah.
Well, I think if you do choose to read the book, you should also see the movie.
Yeah,
Not
we
to
can
mention the
comment-
Broadway musical.
You can comment on both, and I think they're both. I haven't read the book, but I love the movie. So,
Ah.
and I've also listened to her. She has a great YouTube. She's been on so many discussion groups, so I've heard her. It must be for several hours. So she's a very interesting personality.
But we're just getting into it, but we'll be interested to see. Anybody else?
Well, I think I might as well recommend a classic work. How's that? Just so we have something.
Yeah, sure.
It's something we just started. I've joined a Yiddish reading group sponsored by Boston Workman Circle.
Oh.
And I think we can't forget our classic writers. And I was talking there about reading a few of Sholem Aleichem's railroad stories. He wrote a whole collection called
We did that
Railroad
already.
Stories.
We did
already.
that.
They are amazing
We did
stories.
that.
They are amazing stories, and they're published together with the Tevi.
You read it already?
Yes, our
Yeah.
group read them a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Never
they're
mind.
Great. The railroad
I
stories,
wasn't there then.
especially. There's some amazing ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Pedro, you always have a book.
Well, what about this book, Stateless in Shanghai, that
Yeah, I
Tom
wondered
Wolf had
about that
mentioned?
too.
Oh, that's a Jewish book? Is that a
Oh.
Jewish book?
I don't know.
It's about Jews Jews in Shanghai, so it must be.
Yeah, actually, the person who could recommend a really good book to us on the
Jonathan.
topic is here in this group, but for some reason hasn't said a word, and that is Jonathan.
I don't think he made it on.
Oh, okay.
Because he's neither mute nor anything. He just somehow. I don't know.
His name is on one of those little squares.
I know, but he's not answering, and he doesn't have a mute sign in front of his name. So I don't know what that means, but I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll have a great thing. I've got to sign off because I have another meeting at 9. But,
oh gosh.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
But,
Thanks
but
for coming.
thank you for organizing this, and whatever book we choose will be wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Great. Thanks.
Good night.
Okay.
Night.
Night, night.
So, Petra, are you there? But you need to unmute.
Well, everybody could read a
Yeah,
different book,
okay.
I guess.
Okay. I just listened to an introduction, a new book that's come out about Theodor Herzl, and it's called Theodor Herzl, the Charismatic Leader. It's by Professor Derek Penzler of Harvard University, and it's basically part of the Jewish Lives series that they asked him to write about. So he really talks about Herzl as a charismatic leader, and what, even though Herzl wasn't very religious at all, because he made himself kind of an icon, he really had a great influence on Israel and on Judaism. And it's really quite, he also could come and talk to us at the group if we wanted to have him be at our book club.
Who, Herzl? Oh, no.
No, Derek Penzler.
He would come to the book club?
Well,
yes.
Well, he's often out of the country. I mean, he's a professor at Harvard,
But he could always do it on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah.
He could do it on Zoom. Yes.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
could
that
invite
would be a
him.
That would be a good reason to have the Shalom Aleichem volume, if we could just get Shalom Aleichem.
Yeah. I wanted to put a plug in for Be Strong and of Good Courage because of the total lack of leadership we're surrounded by now. I'd like to read about leaders making crucial decisions and what
that's a good idea.
And I guess so. I just wanted to put that of all of these, I just wanted to say that I think that it's a very timely thing for what we're going through.
Yeah, I second that. Okay, so I think we have 3 choices, right, Andrea?
We've got Ben Gurion, well, we've got Dennis Ross, sorry, Be Strong and Have Good Courage, 1. What We Talk About, Hebrew. Or Unorthodox. And I don't know if Stateless in Shanghai was just a thought or a wish to read.
Put it down.
No, that's a suggestion, but I think we have to take off Unorthodox because we have already read it as in the book club.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we have the Herzl book, right?
Right, that's brand new.
Right.
Well, you can put it on.
Right. Okay, so I think if we just pick up our hands to vote, I think we'll be able to see the hands.
Well, not everybody is on video. I think it's
Oh.
better to ask each person to vote, and Andrea will tally.
Oh,
the
good
vote.
point. Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so the first one is Be Strong and Have Good Courage. I'd like that.
Well,
I like that.
No, wait a second, wait a minute. I think that we can vote by hands, and then those people who are not on video will just tell us what they vote for. I think that will.
Sure.
How's that? Okay.
All right.
Now, are we voting for two, Sherry?
Yes.
Well, it's be strong and of good courage, and what we talk about when we talk about Hebrew. Well, wasn't there a third one?
There are four. There's
Yeah.
Herzl and Station.
Andrea, could you read the list again?
Well, it's kind of chopped up now, but the first one was the Ben Gurion, be strong and have good courage.
Yeah.
What do we talk about? What we talk about when we talk about Hebrew. And I'm not sure what we decide on next. Stateless in Shanghai.
Yes.
That's three.
That's three.
And
And
third
then
is
the one
Theodore Herzl.
And then Theodore Herzl is 4.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got 4 books. Okay.
Yep.
So the first one is Be Strong of. And
Oh,
of
wait,
Good-
everybody
Wait.
can vote for 2, correct?
Two.
Okay. Right.
Right.
Good point.
Okay, so the first one is the be strong and of good courage. Okay, so we have to give names. I want that.
So that's 1, 2, 3, not including me. That's 5 people that have their hands up. Is there someone who's?
I will vote.
And
Marcia?
I will vote. Marcia will vote for that one too.
Okay, so that's 6.
6.
And
Be
Sammy,
strong.
are you here? Anybody else here besides Marcia?
Petra will vote for that too.
Wait a minute, now I'm confused.
Petra's
Petra
voting
is voting,
for it.
that's number
So that
7.
makes 1, 2, how many does that make?
7,
Oh, 7?
8. 7 or 8.
not counting Andrea. If
Wait,
Andrea,
can we say that, ask again, okay?
Okay,
Be
let's
strong and have good courage, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3,
But I don't think they can see me.
4,
I can.
5,
and
and
6.
6. You voted for it, right, Petra?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
And
and
7.
Marcia is
Sure.
voting for it also, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 6.
Sherry,
That's 7.
Yes, What?
Sherry,
yes,
can you hear me?
yes.
I have to leave now, but whatever you vote on is fine with me. And whatever date you choose is also fine because I'm not going anywhere.
Oh,
Will you
Oh.
just let me know?
thank you for coming. We appreciate your coming. It's great to
Yeah.
see you.
good to see you.
I appreciate your doing this. This is great because I can stay home. I don't have to go up to Cambridge for it.
Yeah.
Okay, good night.
Good
Night.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
We have to decide on a time.
Oh, wait a second, we haven't chosen the book, have we?
No.
We have
All
a
right, so that's,
second vote.
okay, we have
We're putting on the second vote.
7. Okay, yeah, what we talk about when we talk about Hebrew, who wants that? 1, 2, 3. Anybody who's not showing want it?
I would like that. Marcia would like that.
Marcia wants it, so that's 4.
And
Yeah.
Petra would like that too.
5. Okay, 5 for that.
Yep.
All right, stateless in Shanghai.
I would do
Later, later.
What, Andrea?
that. I would do that.
Okay, that's 1.
Yep.
And the last book is Herzl. That's 2. 3. 3. Okay, that's
There's a.
3 for Herzl.
I thought it was 4.
Where's 4?
We have
Helen, Harriet, and
Next time.
and Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Helen, Harriet, and Charlotte. That's 3.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Okay. So, Andrea, it's the top 2 books, right?
Top 2, yep, is be strong and have good courage. And our second one.
What we talk about when we talk about Hebrew.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're just gonna vote for 1.
Correct.
Okay, number one is be strong and of good courage. How many?
Me.
That's 4, including Andrea is
Yep.
5. And Marcia
Marcia,
is 6.
Marcia,
6.
6. Okay. So that one.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the
That's it.
next book.
Yeah.
That's the next book. Good.
Could you say the whole straight name of it again one more time? Be strong and of good courage by.
Dennis Ross and David Makovsky.
Okay.
It's actually a book that has a title and then a hyphen after it. Let me get
I'm gonna
that.
get it.
Get the full title for you.
We could
It's
work
called-
on it. I'll put out the announcement. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you, guys.
No,
This
wait
was
a
Wait,
minute.
we have to pick a date.
Pick the date. Let's just pick the
Okay.
date. It'll take 2 minutes. Okay, so how about April, what did we say? I
May
forgot.
17th.
April 17th.
May.
May 17th.
Let's do it.
Fine.
Fine.
By
Okay.
the way,
What it looks like.
the title is Be
Oh, that's-
Strong and of Good Courage, How Israel's Most Important Leaders Shaped Its Destiny. Just so you know.
Okay.
All
Thanks.
right. So May 17th, and we'll see where we are, but it probably will be Zooming, but we don't know. But you'll find, I'll announce it.
And are we doing
Okay,
7
thank
o'clock?
you. Thank you. I
No,
gotta
if it's the Zoom, then we'll do the same format.
go. Okay.
What
7
date did you choose?
No, it'll be 7:30. We'll stick to 7:30.
7:30. Okay.
Yeah,
And
but
what
we won't
date?
necessarily.
Bye, everybody.
Did you
Bye-bye,
decide on the
Tina.
date?
May 17th.
Oh, May 17th. Okay.
We might not.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Bye.
Okay.
Good
Thank
night.
you, Harriet. It was great.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
bye,
Night to all.
Bye.
Bye,
bye,
Mark. Bye, everybody.
bye.
Bye.